Hello, my name is Colonel Brian Cantil, United States Army Reserve, retired. I'm an adjunct professor at University of Cincinnati School of Fire Science and Emergency Management. Today I'm interviewing Chief Doug Witsken, who is the LEPC coordinator for Hamilton County. We're going to be discussing the role of the LEPC, especially when it comes to assisting first responders in dealing with terrorism incidents. This interview is for FST 3021, Terrorism for First Responders. And I'd like to thank Chief Witsken for agreeing for this interview. Doug Witsken.
Hello, everyone. And Brian, it's my pleasure to be able to help you and Professor Bennett with this course.
Thank you again for agreeing to help us out.
My pleasure. So I think the best thing to start with is the definition of the LEPC, which is the Local Emergency Planning Committee. And the history of the LEPCs goes back to the 1980s. Specifically, in 1984, there was a catastrophic chemical release in Bhopal, India. It was at a Union Carbide chemical plant, and there was a chemical called methyl isocyanate that was released in a series of failures that occurred at the plant. And when you research this incident, you can find casualty estimates all over the place, and the company doesn't know, the government of India doesn't know, but most people that have looked at this are agreeing on roughly 8,000 people were killed immediately, another 8,000 have died since, and the estimates of the people that were injured from this chemical release go anywhere from the tens of thousands up to the hundreds of thousands. As you can imagine, this incident got a lot of attention in the United States and all over the world, and people started asking if this could happen in our country as well. About a year later, there was another Union Carbide plant located in West Virginia, town of Institute, West Virginia to be exact, and they had a release of another chemical known as aldocarboxime. And this chemical, it did not kill anyone, but it injured about 135 people. After that happened, there started being a lot more attention given to the fact that most communities have no idea what's at the chemical plants that are in their jurisdiction. And what really got people upset is when they found out that this Union Carbide plant in Institute, West Virginia also had the same chemical that was released in the Bhopal, India incident. So this mobilized a lot of lawmakers at both the state and federal level. And in 1986, you had the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, often known by its acronym of EPCRA, was passed at the federal level. It's also referred to as the Superfund Amendment and Reauthorization Act of 1986, or SARA Title III. So you'll hear that legislation referred to in several ways. The legislation required that all states had to pass similar legislation. So in 1988, the state of Ohio passed its own version, which is Ohio Revised Code Section 3750. That legislation created the LEPCs in the state of Ohio. There are 87 local emergency planning committees in our state. Essentially, that's one for each county. There are 2 counties, though, that combine together to have their LEPC. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the history behind how the LEPCs were created. And then what we are tasked with doing is we have to receive chemical reporting from the chemical facilities that are in our county. We have to take the information we get from them. We have to plan for spills or releases at those facilities. And we have to make sure that our county is prepared for any type of spill, release, or other kind of major incident involving the chemicals that we know are in Hamilton County now. At the same time, we also prepare for incidents on our transportation routes, whether that be the river, the rails, or the highways. All right, the role of LEPC in supporting first responders then, the best way to sum up our role with helping them is providing information. And this can come about in several ways. The number one thing that we do is we make sure that the facilities, when they report their chemical inventories, get the information to their local fire departments. Now, this is required of them by law. In reality, not every facility follows up on getting the information to their local first responders. So one of the things we do every year after we have completed the chemical inventory reporting project for our county, and in Hamilton County right now we have 639 facilities that report to us every year, is we group those by jurisdiction and we get the information out to the fire department in every one of the 49 jurisdictions in Hamilton County. So providing information is the number one way that we support first responders. The other thing that we can offer is during an incident in the jurisdiction involving a chemical release, we will work with that fire department and any of the regional hazmat teams that respond to the incident in providing any type of chemical information requests or modeling the release, plume modeling as we call it. The hazmat teams are all capable of that, but sometimes they are so busy that they may want to look to us and request that we do some modeling for them, and we're more than happy to do that in support of their efforts in the field. So we are not a first response agency, but we are standing by and ready to assist our first responders and regional hazmat teams in any way that we possibly can. Now, the role of the LEPCs in protecting critical infrastructure, I think the best way to summarize our role in protecting that infrastructure is allowing us to identify what infrastructure poses the greatest risk to the community. For example, I've already talked about the role of the LEPC in collecting chemical inventory reporting. We take that information and we model spills or releases from each facility. We have a software that gives us a worst case release analysis, and by looking at those documents we are able to predict which facilities could have the most catastrophic or the most serious chemical release. So the LEPC's role in protecting critical infrastructure is number one, making sure that we all are aware of the most critical facilities that are in Hamilton County and all of its jurisdictions. So that essentially is our role. We also would play a bit of a role in helping facilities comply with the Department of Homeland Security requirements under their CFATS program, or the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards program. We assist facilities in meeting the requirements of that. In particular, I've been involved in coordinating visits among local agencies, including local first responders, in doing walkthroughs at the CFATS facilities in order to establish relationships between the facilities, our agency, the hazmat team, the first responders, law enforcement, so that everyone gets to know the facility better and is aware of what they're going into in the event they have to make a response there. So I think that's probably the best way to sum up our role in protecting critical infrastructure. I think the successes of the Hamilton County LEPC are several. I think the first one is the fact that we have worked very hard in the last couple of years in sharing the information that we get in a better way. Not only do we email out to all of the jurisdiction fire chiefs all of the Tier 2 reports, the worst case analysis documents, we have worked with GIS programs and shapefiles and have enabled the use of the Google Earth app on mobile devices so that they can visually see the facilities in their response areas, and also just can click on the icon for each facility and bring up a list of chemicals, and then they're able to touch on the name of the chemicals and open the mobile device browser and get to a complete website full of chemical information where they can get anything they need to know about the chemical, and this is all can be accessed in the field while they're on an incident. So we're very happy with how we've improved information sharing, both from a desktop perspective and also from a mobile access on an emergency incident. I think that training and grants would be our second biggest success. We have brought in quite a few training programs in the last couple of years, most of them funded by several grants that we have access to. So a big part of my time each year is spent applying for grants, and then once the grants are received, reaching out to a variety of training providers and scheduling programs for our local firefighters, police officers, and hazmat technicians. And we have trained between last year and this year well over 700 first responders through our training programs. So we are very excited about what's happened with that. So that would be our second success. Third, I would say that the exercises that we have done with the LEPC and engaging our regional partners has been another success. We are required every 4 years to do 2 tabletop exercises, 1 functional and 1 full-scale exercise. And this is mandated by the state. The exercises have to be evaluated. And we have worked very hard to involve a variety of jurisdictions and many of our regional response partners in those exercises. For example, we just completed a few weeks ago a full-scale exercise at Great American Ballpark where we had over 300 victims in a mass casualty incident combined with a serious hazardous materials release from an ammonia tank truck down on Marion Way. So it was a very complex incident to respond to, and it was great training for our first responders and definitely one of the best exercises I think we've ever done in our region. So I was very pleased with that. And so I think exercises and engaging regional partners would be a third major success of the LEPC in Hamilton County. As far as challenges go for the LEPC, there are several. And number one, in speaking of the chemical reporting that takes place every year, it's an ongoing challenge for us to make sure that all the facilities in the county that should be reporting their chemical inventories are. There are certain reporting thresholds that a facility must be aware of to require them to report. If they are not aware or choose to ignore those requirements, it falls on the LEPC to identify the facilities and take corrective action. So in the last couple of years, we've probably identified about a half dozen facilities that should be reporting that have not been. Unfortunately, when we've contacted the facilities, they have been very cooperative and worked very well with us to take care of that. So that is an ongoing challenge, and it will remain one, especially as new facilities move into Hamilton County, to make sure that we're aware of them and that we engage with them as soon as possible to make sure they report. The second major challenge is educating the public. As I've already discussed, one of the things the LEPC has to do is to make plans for spills or releases that may occur in Hamilton County. If such an event does occur, there is going to be the need in many of those cases to have the public take protective actions. In other words, we may have to have them shelter in place in their residence or place of employment, or we may need them to evacuate. One of the biggest challenges we have in a shelter-in-place situation is making sure the public knows just what that means. If we went out right now and just walked down the street and asked people what it means to shelter in place, I am sure we would get a wide variety of answers. And this is a huge public education challenge for us. So one of the things that we are working on right now is a new public education program for sheltering in place to make sure that everyone knows that means to go indoors, close your windows, close your doors, turn off your air conditioning or heat depending on the season, and then tune to local media for more instructions. If we have a serious chemical plume that is moving with the wind through a residential or commercial area where there's a lot of people, minutes are critical, and when people receive a shelter-in-place alert through a variety of means that we have getting those alerts out, they need to know what it means and they need to be able to take action within just a few minutes. So that's a huge challenge for us, but one that we are working on correcting and getting as much information out there for the public as we can. And then, again, just to summarize, keeping our county prepared just in a broad sense, we have to make sure that Hamilton County has the agencies, the assets, and the systems in place to respond to a chemical emergency in Hamilton County. And every year we have to submit an updated hazardous materials response plan for Hamilton County to the state of Ohio. And we engage all of our regional partners in preparing that plan, and we have to make sure that it's current and that it would be an effective plan if we would have a serious incident here in Hamilton County. So again, that remains an ongoing challenge for our LEPC. And then finally, wanted to talk a little bit about how the fire service can better utilize the LEPC. And I think if I was to ask fire departments to make the best use of the information we can provide them, number one, I would encourage them to review the information that we provide them and learn the facilities that are in their jurisdiction, learn what chemicals are there, learn what the potential hazards, review the worst case analysis document that we send, which will essentially show them just how bad a spill or release could be from this facility. Then on top of that, I would ask them to take those documents we provide and go visit the facilities, meet with the owners and operators of the facility, do a walkthrough or a site visit, and review the documents with them, learn the location of the chemicals, talk to the plant personnel, ask what their actions would be in the event of a spill or release, and then talk about how they could best coordinate their efforts. So that would be my first request to the fire departments to better utilize the LEPC, is take advantage of the information that we offer and use that information to go out and get better acquainted through site visits in your community. And then finally, the other way I think that they could better utilize the LEPC would be to become involved in the annual exercises that we have to do. It's always the feedback that we get from the jurisdictions that participate is that they have enjoyed the exercises they've done with us, and they feel they're better prepared having gone through either a tabletop, a functional, or a full-scale exercise with us. I think it's a good experience, a good learning experience for everyone involved, and I would encourage fire departments to get involved in our exercises, because I think they're going to find it to be a good experience. I think that's it.
Chief, thank you for your time. Very informative interview regarding the LEPC for Hamilton County and its capabilities in supporting first responders and our communities. Thank you, sir.